The little girl was lying face down on the scorching roadside, her small fingers twitching against the burning pavement as cars sped past without slowing down. The afternoon sun blazed overhead, turning the air heavy and merciless. People glanced, hesitated, and moved on. No one wanted trouble. No one wanted responsibility. Until a tired man with worn-out shoes and a heart heavier than his empty wallet stopped in his tracks. If you believe kindness and second chances can change lives, take a moment right now to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Whisper Tales 3. Your support keeps stories like this alive. Aarav Malik had nothing but a rusted bicycle, a tiny rented room on the edge of the city, and a 7-year-old son named Kabir who believed his father was the strongest man in the world. Aarav worked double shifts at a construction site under the relentless daytime sun. His palms were cracked, his back constantly aching, but he never complained. Since losing his wife 3 years ago, every breath he took was for his son. Poverty had become a silent companion, sitting beside him at every meal of plain rice and lentils. That afternoon, Aarav was riding home early because the contractor had dismissed workers due to a supply delay. He was calculating how he would stretch the little money he had left for the week when he saw the crowd gathered loosely around something on the road. Not helping. Just watching. He pushed through and felt his heart drop. A young girl, no older than 8 or 9, her expensive-looking dress torn and dusty, her face pale as paper. There was a faint bruise on her forehead, and her breathing was shallow, uneven. Without thinking about hospital bills or consequences, Aarav lifted her gently into his arms. She felt fragile, like a bird with a broken wing. Someone muttered that it looked like a hit and run. Another warned him not to get involved. But Aarav didn't care. He placed her carefully on his bicycle, balancing her as best as he could, and rushed toward the nearest government hospital. The ride felt endless. The sun burned his neck, sweat stung his eyes, and fear pounded in his chest. He whispered silent prayers the entire way, promising anything if the child would just survive. At the hospital, the staff hesitated when they saw his worn clothes and anxious face. Forms were pushed toward him. Questions were fired. He didn't know her name, her address, nothing. He only knew she was dying. When they demanded an initial deposit for emergency treatment, Aarav froze. The amount was more than he earned in 2 months. For a split second, panic threatened to choke him. Then he thought of Kabir. If that were his son lying there, wouldn't he pray someone would help? Aarav reached into his pocket and handed over every rupee he had saved for rent and groceries. It wasn't enough. So he removed the only valuable thing he owned, his late wife's simple gold wedding band that he had kept in his wallet all these years. With trembling hands, he offered it. Something in his eyes convinced the hospital administrator to begin treatment immediately. Hours passed like centuries. Aarav sat on a hard bench in the corridor, staring at the closed doors of the emergency room. He hadn't called Kabir yet. He didn't want to worry him. His stomach growled, but he ignored it. All he could think about was the small, lifeless face of the girl. By evening, doctors informed him that she would survive. She had suffered a concussion and severe dehydration, but she was out of immediate danger. Relief flooded through him so powerfully that his knees nearly gave out. He thanked every doctor and nurse repeatedly, his eyes shining with gratitude. The girl regained consciousness the next morning. Her name, the nurse told him gently, was Sanvi. She had been reported missing since noon. Aarav felt a strange warmth hearing her name. He stepped into her room hesitantly. She looked smaller in the hospital bed, her large eyes confused and scared. Though weak, she reached out instinctively when she saw him, as if recognizing the only familiar face in a world that had turned frightening. Aarav stayed by her side throughout the day, feeding her small spoonfuls of soup provided by the hospital. He spoke softly about ordinary things, about the bright afternoon sky, about how brave she had been. He didn't ask about her family. He didn't expect anything in return. What he didn't know was that the entire city was buzzing with news of a missing child, the daughter of billionaire industrialist Aarav Malik. Security footage had captured a kidnapping attempt gone wrong, resulting in the accident and the criminals fleeing when witnesses gathered. The girl had somehow been left behind in the chaos. Late that afternoon, black luxury vehicles surrounded the hospital entrance. Men in suits rushed inside, followed by a tall, commanding figure whose face was etched with sleepless terror. Aarav Malik had spent the worst night of his life searching for his only child. When he entered Sanvi's room and saw her alive, a sound escaped him that was half sob, half prayer. He rushed to her bedside, holding her as though she might vanish again. Sanvi, still weak, pointed toward Aarav and whispered that he had saved her. The room grew silent as powerful eyes turned toward the exhausted construction worker standing awkwardly in the corner. Aarav approached him, gratitude overwhelming his usual composed demeanor. Aarav tried to step back, embarrassed by his dusty clothes and tired face. He insisted he had only done what anyone would do. But not everyone had. Over the next few days, investigations confirmed everything. Aarav had found her alone. He had paid for her treatment. He had stayed without expecting reward. When Aarav learned that Aarav had given away his entire savings and even his late wife's ring, something shifted inside him. Aarav visited Aarav's modest home one bright afternoon. The tiny room was neat but painfully humble. Kabir stood protectively beside his father, unsure why such important-looking people were there. When Aarav learned about Aarav's struggles, about the nights he skipped meals so his son could eat, about the dreams he quietly buried to survive, he made a decision that would change all their lives. He offered Aarav a stable managerial position at one of his company's construction divisions, recognizing not just his courage but his integrity. He arranged for Kabir's education at a top school. And he returned the gold wedding band, carefully restored and polished, placing it back in Aarav's palm as a symbol of respect. Aarav's eyes filled with tears he had held back for years. For the first time since his wife's death, hope felt real and tangible. Life didn't transform overnight into luxury and ease. Aarav still worked hard. He still rode his bicycle sometimes, even when he could afford not to. But the constant fear of hunger and eviction faded. Kabir began smiling more freely. And Sanvi often visited, running into Aarav's arms like he was family. Because sometimes, destiny hides behind ordinary moments. A poor single father, exhausted and unnoticed by the world, chose compassion over convenience. And in doing so, he didn't just save a billionaire's daughter. He rediscovered his own worth. If this story touched your heart even a little, please like, share, and comment to let us know you felt it too. Your engagement helps spread messages of hope and kindness. And before we end, comment the word kindness if you believe one good deed can change a lifetime. Aarav never stopped believing that doing the right thing mattered, even when no one was watching. And on a blazing afternoon when the world looked away, his courage proved that sometimes the richest hearts belong to those with the least.